Okay guys, something a little bit different today. Just picked up a BMW G 650 cross country. Um, so as anybody who watches this channel know that I'm very much interested in the smaller adventure bikes, Himalayas and CF Moto 450 MTs and that. But it is apparent to me that there's lots of good second-hand bikes out there, and I wanted to try and touch on those a little bit more over the next year or so, just to remind people that you don't have to buy brand new to have a good adventure bike. And I think it equal to the fact we've got to ask ourselves, is progress being made with the new bikes? Because actually, when you look at this cross country, you actually realise that in a lot of ways we're going backwards. And so this is the second bike in my series. I need to upload something on the Versys 300X, which is another forgotten adventure bike, which has got lots of potential in it and not a big price tag. And this is the second one. I found it on Facebook Marketplace. A sort of a dealer up in Western-super-Mare advertised it at 2,450, which if anybody knows the market for these knows is quite low. And he came down to 2,250, so I went to pick it up. 16,000 miles, a few owners, not cosmetically pretty. There's a few bits of corrosion. Clearly it's probably had a life by the sea, Western-super-Mare. But mechanically it seems fine. It's had a full service history throughout its life. It's just had crash handguards fitted, a screen, and and it's had new tyres on it, and it looks like it's had new pads all round. So actually, it looks like it's been like a well cared for bike, but maybe not cleaned as much as it could be. But it doesn't seem too bad. So for 2,250, what have I got? Well, I've got a 53 brake horsepower, 650cc single. The engine's made in China by Longchin, which is BMW's engine partner. I think it came out 2007 to 2009, so it was a short-lived production run of this, and I think there were three variants. There was like the extreme one, which was more of an enduro off-road focused bike, and then there was one with like a supermoto variant of it. Small tank, I think it's about 8.5 litres or so, or 9.5, so not a huge tank. The best thing is the seat height. I mean, look at this. Nice and low, flat-footed, probably about 780, I would say. And weight-wise, they claimed 143 kilos. Taking that with a pinch of salt, because it's nowhere near 143, that must be a dry weight, which is really interesting in the way that people talk about weights from the spec sheet as though that's gospel. Well, clearly in 2009 when they launched this bike, they didn't use wet weight figures, they used dry weight figures, which is going to be the difference of about 12-14 kilos. So I'd say 160 for this, which even in today's market is a very low weighted bike. The new Himalayans 195, CF Motors 197, so sort of 160 for a 53 horsepower accessible adventure bike is really low. And I think that's where it got me asking the question, well, in what direction are we going and are we actually moving forwards or backwards? I think a lot of the issue or the reality is that most manufacturers are trying to adhere to the A2 compliancy, which requires a minimum spec sheet weight of 175 kilos and obviously a cap on power at 47 brake horsepower. So that's obviously shoehorning manufacturers and maybe sort of stymiing them a little bit in what they can design and offer. But at the expense that if they didn't, they wouldn't have a market to offer to. So it's almost forcing manufacturers to go down a narrow gully, which is probably making bikes heavier and less powerful than they could be. So that's an interesting direction we've gone in. I think price is also interesting. Taking into account for inflation, this was I think £5,000 or nearly £5,000 in 2009. That equates to I think £8,400 now. So yes, it's lower weight and it's higher performance, higher horsepower, but it's £3,000 more than a new Himalayan, which on the road I would imagine is quite pound for pound just as good. So in some ways, technologically we've gone backwards, but price-wise we've gone down. And so you could say that's a good or a bad thing. I think personally it's a good thing because it's made bikes more affordable. It's interesting with BMW launching or showcasing that new 450 GS that they've done at the show and touting it with a pricing structure of maybe £8,000, £9,000, who knows, but it's not going to be a cheap bike. And I would say use this as a case in point. It's okay doing a premium small capacity bike, but will it sell if the price is too high? And I think the market clearly is very sensitive with smaller capacity bikes as to its price point. So this was only sold for a couple of years and I don't think it was very popular. None of BMW's X range of bikes were ever very popular, whether it was the 450X or even the HP2, all their sort of higher end, lighter, stripped back, giving the market what it wants. Well, the market didn't buy what it said it wanted, it bought something else. So I think this could be a good example of BMW maybe treading the wrong path and getting bitten, which they might be now repeated again with this 450 GS if it is going to be £8,000, £9,000, £10,000, because who is going to buy it? Who knows? So for now, to me, I've got myself a nice, manageable, £2,250 adventure motorcycle that would take me anywhere: Morocco, Montenegro, Iceland, Scotland, Ireland, or wherever, with a manageable seat height. So I'm going to do a full ride on it. I've not got it insured or road ready yet. I've just literally picked it up, but wanted to do a quick introductory video. I mean, actually, you know what I mean when they say 144. That's not a 144 bike. That feels everything a CRF or anything like that. I think I'd like to get it on some scales, because I think there's a bit of fibbing going on there. But it's certainly a manageable bike. Not a bad looking bike either, is it? A bit humdrum, not too exciting, but it's got preload adjustment. I don't know, has it got ABS? I don't know too much about it. I'm sure there'll be commentators who have owned one who will tell me a little bit more about it. This isn't a bike I'm going to keep. I'm going to run it for a bit, just do a few miles on it and tell you what I think of it and why it might be right for you or wrong for you, and then I'm going to move it on. So if anybody wants to speculatively, put me a bid in and buy it after I've finished with it, that's an option to you, and then that will allow me to move on to the next bike and work through a catalogue of bikes which might be on your tick list of second-hand bargains, because that's what we're looking for, isn't it? We're looking for a bike that does the job of adventure without costing us the earth. There's no point going on an adventure with a bike that you financed up to the hilt on. And people could say, well, £20,000 is too much. Well, £6,000 for a brand new Himalayan might be too much equally. But in the £2,000 price range, I think there's lots of adventure bikes on offer. So that's where we're going. This is bike number 2. This is a G650X cross country, 650 single. Next video, I'll go out for a ride on it. See how it goes on road and trail a little bit. All right, cheers.